In this video, I'm going to be modifying this Allis Chalmers sickle mower to a 3-point attachment so that I can hook it up to the back of my Kubota tractor. This has some sort of Allis Chalmers, we'll say AC from here on out. It's got some sort of AC proprietary hookup. I'm not entirely sure how that's supposed to mount to the tractor. It would have pinned on under the frame of the thing somehow. It appears to be driven PTO, rather, PTO with a belt down to the gear case at the base of the sickle mower. A lot of these things are not this belt drive. A lot of these sickle mowers, and Ford seems to be the most common in my area. I've seen probably 5 Ford mowers to every other brand. The Fords are driven on a wooden pitman arm. So the PTO shaft comes out of the tractor and a wooden arm goes back and forth, and that's what actually makes the sickle mower work. And those will only work when the head, we'll call that the head, I'm not sure what you would call it exactly. When that head is laid down in the mowing position, for hay or grass or whatever, that pitman arm running this way operates the sickle mower that way. Well, what I want to do with this is I want to operate it in a vertical position like that so that I can trim along the edge of the driveway and along the trails back in the woods, all the brush, tree limbs hanging out, twigs hanging out. I realize it won't handle anything heavy, but I've been told that these things can operate, on light duty brush and stuff like that, that it's not real hard on them. So that's what I want to do. So how I'm going to do this, I was taking measurements off my other 3-point implements to try to determine, the width of the bottom arms, the height of the third function or the third arm from the bottom 2 pins, just getting overall dimensions in preparation to build a sort of a 3-point hitch. And I got to this implement. It's been sitting back here in the weeds, and I've only used this one time, and I didn't even use it as a cultivator. I used it as a counterweight one time. I hung a big heavy John Deere plow on it as a counterbalance when I was using the forks on my tractor one day. So that's the only thing this has ever been used for, and I've owned it for, I want to say 3 or 4 years. I picked it up at a swap. I picked it up because it was cheap. It was 25 bucks. I thought, heck, for 25 bucks, that's a deal I can't pass up. Well, it's been sitting around, so I think I'm going to cannibalize this thing to make the hitch work for that, and then I'll just, I'll keep the shoes or I'll throw them away, or them little, I don't know. But I want the 3-point hookup. I'm going to figure out how to mount it on that thing. Now this mower, it's got extra parts. I have absolutely no clue what these parts are. These came with it. It's got a couple of extra cutter bars. I'm sure those are just replacements for the one that's already on there. I do know that big board is supposed to go out on the end of it. Somehow it attaches on the end when you're laying down cutting hay, that it lays it back in. Of course, that's the end of the PTO shaft, but I'm not entirely sure how this thing functions. This looks like some sort of an adjustment. I'm guessing to set the pitch of the thing. Looks like that would work that way. I'm really not sure what that cable is supposed to be doing, and I'm not entirely sure what that big spring does. So I'm going to fiddle with this thing. I honestly, this is the most I've looked at it since I bought it. I brought it home from the farm sale about 3 weeks ago, parked it in the weeds, and I just got it out today. Well, this is going to be a little trickier than I was originally anticipating. Because of the length of that PTO shaft, I need about 25 inches past that pin of shaft length. So if I mount, I've got that PTO shaft stretches just as far as I can. To get 25 inches, my pin needs to be back here. So that means that I'm going to have to severely cut that frame down to make this work. So I removed the cultivators from the bottom of it. Got my torch ready. I'm going to go ahead and chop this frame apart, set it on there and see what it looks like. Well, here's where we're at. I had to torch off the end of that tab to make clearance for the pin, but I'm also going to raise that up. I'm going to cut this frame, this original frame, I'm going to cut that off in front of that pipe right there at that mark on both sides. Then you can see I've marked out white lines. I'm going to cut 2 7-inch chunks out of that to use. Each one of those will be welded on top of the original frame to raise my pins up. What is that, 3-4 inches, whatever that height is, because I don't have clearance to hook up my 3-point against that pin. I really don't want to cut this large diameter tube out, because that works, that mechanism to adjust the angle of the thing. And if I ever do want to adjust that angle, I want to have that ability if possible. Well, it's a whole lot shorter than it was just a minute ago. Well, I've got those 2 brackets welded on there. You can see I ground the tops of them, ground the sort of mating surfaces of this bracket. So now the next thing I'm going to do, set that on there, weld that up. Well, I got the mount welded on there. It ain't pretty, but it ought to work. I was about 3/4 of the way done, and I realized I had the PTO shaft outside of it. So now I'm going to have to unpin the PTO shaft, because even if I take it apart, it won't go through there like it needs to. So should be able to, fingers crossed, unpin that, pop the shaft off, run it through there, and then pin it back on. Now what I need to figure out, though, is how to attach this top. This top link here needs to be attached somewhere. And the problem that I've just realized is the way that this frame, this pipe, is part of the main frame, stationary frame of the unit. It's attached to this pipe, what I've welded to, this other pipe that runs parallel to it. It's attached to it by this adjusting mechanism. So what I had thought about doing, I was just going to weld from here to this bracket, and that should be plenty strong, and that was going to be the end of the welding. But what I realized was, if I did that, then I lose the adjustability on that mechanism. But I may have to do that because I need to fasten it somehow. This is not strong enough to take the whole load. It would torque this and bend it and break it. So I'm gonna have to brace it somehow. Okay, so here's what I've decided. When I crank this, it draws that in, and when I crank it backwards, it pushes it out. It's doing the same thing that the top link does. So if I fasten this stationary with a bar across here, I won't necessarily lose any adjustment, because I'll be able to make the adjustment with my adjustable top link. So, problem solved. I went ahead and used a piece of square tubing that I had laying around, smashed that in, kind of made a wedge out of it, and welded it all the way around. It's not pretty, but it ought to hold just fine. So I then tested my little crank here, and it puts that in a bind, so that no longer functions, but that's fine. Again, I'll be able to use my adjustable top link to do exactly what that did. So I think I'm done cutting and welding and stuff. At least I hope I am. Went ahead and then focused my attention on, let's get this gear case filled up, make sure it's got oil in it. I'm saying this is probably an oil-filled case because of this little nipple right here. This looks like a breather off of every other gear case I've ever seen. So I'm going to pop that plug out. I'm going to fill it up till, I don't know, I guess I'll fill it up till it runs out of this. When you flip the thing back up sideways, of course I dropped it. When you flip it back up, this is about halfway. So I guess I could fill it up halfway. Either way, it's going to find its own level. So I'll check that. Then I'm going to grab my grease gun. I'm going to go around here, and I'm going to hit. There's little grease fittings all over the thing. So I'll pull that PTO shaft off, run it through there, and reattach it. The belt looks like it's in pretty good shape. As far as this sickle bar, the cutter teeth, this is the portion that moves. It's got little serrated teeth. Of course, they're all rusty, but you can still feel the serrations on there. I'm going to guess that they're pretty sharp. That rust ought to, that surface rust ought to kind of come right off there with some use. I'm going to go ahead and oil this thing up, just slather it with oil all down through here, because this rod, well, let me just roll it a little bit, if it will. I'll show you. That's the motion. So it goes back and forth, and I'm turning this pulley one direction, and that thing goes back and forth. There I'm pulling the pulley the other direction, because I'm getting in a bind with my PTO shaft. So anyhow, you can see what moves and what stays stationary. Again, lots of grease fittings down here. I'm going to grease everything up, oil the heck out of that. And we're getting awful close. Well, I got it slathered in oil on this end. I overfilled that gear case, I'm sure. And I oiled up every little spot that looked like metal rubbing metal. I greased every grease fitting, even though I know those two won't mean anything now. And it's rolling over real smooth. I unpinned the PTO shaft. I was able to get that apart. Cleaned it up a little bit. It was kind of grungy in there. It was kind of hard to get apart. Wire brushed the shaft and straightened out the pin. Had a little bend to it, just little stuff. Got it all put back together, and this thing is running super smooth. Now that thing's clunking around because it's, rolling on the ground, but you can't even hear that anymore. That was dragging. You could just hear that metal. Now you can't even hear nothing. So I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to go ahead and back the tractor up here, see if I can get it hooked up, and we'll go from there. Well, it's on the back of the tractor. Nothing really crazy jumping out at me. This is a little bit closer than I would like it. I may take a grinder and kind of knock that corner off there. Same thing over there. The thing leans way out, but I guess, it should. But really, it should be riding like that, which, that actually looks, the PTO shaft angle looks really good there. The U-joints, that U-joint is just about perfectly straight, so that's really nice. That one there is not much of an angle. So that looks really good. Nothing crazy is jumping out at me. I say we go ahead and engage it while it's down like this, in the position that it's supposed to be in when it's running. And we'll see if it, how it does right there. I don't expect any trouble, but it goes without saying, but this is extremely dangerous. So if you guys are doing something like this around home, dogs, kids, cats, whatever, they should not be around when you're doing this. That is running really smooth. The noisiest thing is the PTO guard. Let's run it up. Faster than I like it. I don't like that belt jumping around like it was. I'm not sure what RPM this thing is supposed to be run. would say 2,000 is probably as fast as I'd want to run it. About 1,500 RPM. We'll go ahead and flip this thing vertically. We'll hook that bar back up. So it's going to take two hands to do that, but we'll see if it'll run in the vertical position then. Okay, so the first thing I notice is it's not in a perfectly parallel with the tractor. It is on a little bit of an angle. I don't know if that'll really matter much with what I'm doing. I don't know that there's any way to adjust that out of it. I guess I could pivot my 3-point over if it's an issue. We'll have to test it, but if it's an issue, I can pull the pins on my bottom arms, shift the whole assembly over and repin it, and that would straighten it up. But of course it would bring it in, you know, it would just swing the whole thing in. So hopefully we won't have to do that. I can't see any reason why it wouldn't run just like it is. It was running over when I rolled it by hand, so let's go ahead and try it with a tractor. Sounds good. A little bit of vibration though. You can see the seat bouncing there. It's not terrible, but there is some vibration there. Smoothed out a little bit. Definitely smoothed out a lot. Run it up to about 1,500. Belt's not jumping real bad. Not a lot of vibration. You can see the seat pretty well staying still now, so not a lot of vibration out of it. Dangerous, dangerous, dangerous. I guess this is the one thing that I didn't account for, is the amount of debris that, you know, falls on and is going to bind up these pulleys. That's just from where I lowered it down so far. I dug in the dirt when I backed up under these trees to unplug it. So I guess that's something I'll have to keep in mind, because that'd be, that looks like that can be real bad. Luckily I had it shut off when I did that. It's doing a pretty good job though. Overall, the mower does a really good job of cutting, back the brush. But the one thing it really struggles with are limbs like this that grow, they're up so high, they grow out and then they come straight down, and they're still, this is about 5 feet off the ground, so it's still kind of in the way. So I am going to have to go around with my, limb saw or pruners or something and trim those off. But it did a really good job of, all the brush coming out anywhere from a foot off the ground up to, I don't know, about 8 or 9 feet. The edge of the yard looks really nice, and that's going to help me with mowing. It's going to help the yard look a whole lot nicer. But the most noticeable difference is this trail. This is the trail that leads out of the backyard into the woods, and I haven't been able to get my golf cart down this trail in a couple of months. It is open right up. This is so much better. I'll run my bush hog down this, bust up any limbs that are laying on the ground, and it's all kind of little stuff anyhow. It's, I could run the golf cart through here, it wouldn't hurt anything. But I run the bush hog down through here, and this will look really nice. Well, as you saw, the mower works great. Out on the edge of the fields and edge of the yard and stuff, it's excellent. It does a really good job. Back in the woods, it's pretty wide. It gets kind of precarious when you start squeezing in between trees and stuff. So I have to keep in mind that, if you bump up against trees and you're not paying attention, you could possibly break the thing. Little teaser for next time there, guys. I hope you liked this video. If you did, click that thumbs up button. You want to see more videos like this, me using this thing or me fixing this thing, click the subscribe button. Until the next video, keep on tinkering.